The Center for Innovation. Oh, there we go. My name is Jim Wentworth. I work at the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning at the University of Illinois. And my current role is AI strategist. So we're trying on this campus to figure out all kinds of things about AI, just like so many of you. Today's talk, I'm really focusing on a tool that you may already be familiar with. It's got a lot of attention over the past year or so, NotebookLM. So I think I'm going to dive right in. I will stop my camera here and dive in. So the first thing I want to do is most of you, I'm assuming, have at least heard of NotebookLM. It, I think its popularity grew sometime in the last year or two, mainly because of this feature. It was
Yeah.
the first thing out that created these audio podcasts. So I'm going to show you a very, we maybe won't watch this whole thing, but I want to get started. Make sure you've at least heard one of these and seen this feature in action.
Imagine if the secret to making AI smarter um, wasn't giving it access to the entire internet,
Right, exactly.
but actually just locking it in a room with only 50 books. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Today, we are taking your sources, specifically a 2026 guide on Google's Notebook LM, and looking at how artificially restricting an AI might actually be the cure for your information overload.
It is a fascinating concept.
Because let's be honest, processing complex information today just feels like drinking from a fire hose. So Notebook LM is basically this highly focused research assistant. I like to think of it as an open book exam where the AI can only look at the exact books you provide.
Yeah, that closed loop design is really the defining technical trait of the system.
Right.
Instead of pulling from the vast and, often contradictory web like standard ChatGPT does, NotebookLM operates strictly on the files you upload.
Just your specific files.
Exactly. You give it up to 50 sources, and each one is capped at a massive 500,000 words, and its entire universe just shrinks to those documents.
Wow, 500,000 words per source is a lot.
It really is. And because its processing power shifts from creative generation to strict analytical retrieval, every single answer it provides includes a clickable citation.
Linking directly to a paragraph in your text, right?
Yes, exactly. It forces the AI to ground its answers, which practically eliminates those infamous hallucinations.
So that restriction fundamentally changes how you use it. I mean, you aren't asking it for general trivia. You are forcing it to do heavy analytical lifting on your data.
It alters the workflow across entirely different disciplines. Like if you are analyzing texts for a humanities essay.
Okay, I won't make us listen to the full 5 minutes. If you've heard these two podcasters, you probably recognize the voices. This is what you get when you use the audio overview feature in NotebookLM, is a podcast style review of the content you've uploaded, right? So they did a good job of hitting on a few key points. Mainly, and the thing I'll focus on a lot is that NotebookLM is one of the few tools that is truly grounded in the documents you provide. And so I work in a faculty support role, trying to help faculty integrate AI into courses. And they're very concerned about, is the information, if I give them a chatbot, how do I know that the information the chatbot gives them is accurate, right? How do I make sure it's not just dreaming up some answer? We hear a lot about hallucinations, and Notebook is the only tool I've come across. Not that I've done a thorough scan, but this is the tool I've found that really allows you to say it's only going to draw answers from the sources I've provided. And in this instance, what you're looking at here is just a single source over here in my left panel. It's actually text I pasted in from a blog post. And if we listen to the whole podcast, you would start to see some of the biases that exist because of the source I chose. I won't get into the details, but you will start to see that basically the blog I used is this blog right here. It was nice and updated. It's a very good walkthrough of how to use NotebookLM, but it was created by a company that's kind of in the same business as NotebookLM, and they are really trying to show you how to use their tool in conjunction with Notebook. And so I think this is made by Prismer. I think that's whose site this is. And so that bias starts to show up, right? Because it is comparing itself to NotebookLM in this blog post, because it is saying that it has a slightly better interactive quizzing than NotebookLM, all of that bias enters into my data here, right? And so that's my first main point, I guess, is that the notebook you build is only as good as the sources you decide to use, right? And I did this fairly intentionally to show you, but the only other thing I built for this particular notebook, I've got to close out of my podcast, got to move things around one more time, sorry. Okay, close out of that, is so I should ask real quick, whether you in the chat or feel free to speak up, how many of you have tried NotebookLM? Do we have a lot of people who've given it a try? Assuming most of you are here because you've heard of it and at least seen it in action a little bit. Yep. One of the features that they've added sometime within the past few months that I found really started to make this more than just a student dashboard. And that's what I'll focus on mainly today is how to use this kind of to build a learning dashboard, which is what I do with a lot of stuff. I've got a lot of these notebooks. And so when I have a new topic I want to study, I might bring all my sources into a notebook and then even compare and contrast different long PDFs on things. But when they added the slide deck recently, I was pretty impressed with the quality of the PowerPoints that this is creating now. So I'm going to run through this PowerPoint because I didn't build a PowerPoint for today's session. This will hit on some of my key points, and then we'll move on. So today, I really want to get you building one or two of these dashboards. Um, but I think you'll see that the quality of this is really quite good. It discusses the reduction of hallucination because it's truly grounded in your own sources. I think the visuals it puts together are pretty dynamic, pretty interesting. The kinds of inputs you can bring into it, this is all accurate. It does not take PD or PowerPoint files, which was a little bit of a surprise to me recently to see it still have to convert PowerPoint to PDF first. Um, And depending on the kind of Google account you are accessing Notebook with, it's either 50 sources per notebook. I think I've got a license that gives me 300 sources per notebook. I think there's even a level of 600 sources. It just seems a little bit outrageous at that point. But here are kind of the 6 things you might do in NotebookLM. Generate study guides. We're going to look at this a lot. Targeted extraction. This is really kind of talking about the chat feature, right? I'll be able to ask questions from my sources rather than just going and finding the briefing documents or making summaries. I can ask very targeted questions about my sources. I can generate practice questions, flashcards. I can do audio overview, and now you'll see there's also video overviews or video explainers, mind maps, and all kinds of notes, FAQs, all kinds of documents you can build within Notebook. So that's what we'll be exploring. The audio overview, and I like that it hit on this point. This is a point I really emphasize is it's drawing from your own sources. So we know it's not hallucinating, but that doesn't mean it's really understanding the depth of what you want to cover. I find that it can oversimplify complex things or miss the key points. And so it's not perfect by any means because there are, we can't, it's not comprehensive in what it builds necessarily, but it is accurate in what it builds. Just a few examples of how you might use prompts within um, NotebookLM. So in the STEM, explain the mechanism of in plain language with a real world application. So this is how, if you were building one of these for your students or allowing them to build it for themselves with your resources, then this is where it really becomes powerful, is they can come in and start to ask questions in the chat bot and clear up their own misconceptions. And I think NotebookLM here has just given me a few different scenarios across humanities and social sciences, What are the main arguments across these sources? Summarize each position. So you can imagine if you're bringing in a number of PDFs, things like this really help to start to synthesize information across different sources. Medicine and pre-med, explain the pathophysiology of this condition step by step, create a comparison table of condition versus condition. So, yep, compare and analysis, all of those things. What textual evidence do critics who disagree use? And so, really trying to tap into what are these sources, what's represented in these sources? What am I trying to extract from these sources that are going to help me learn and digest what it is I'm trying to learn? All right, so those examples, here's where you can see again now that Prismer has brought in, because that's the blog, the only source I used, it has built this comparison chart based on that. It does notice these two things, but it really did like to highlight the fact that Prismer makes better interactive quizzes, which is probably true. I wouldn't doubt it. I haven't had a chance to look yet. The quiz tool in Notebook isn't great. Um, so here's what you're tending to do, right? You're bringing together you're synthesizing a number of documents. So if the faculty has said, here's everything you're responsible for in this section of our course, you might bring all of those PDFs and in and start to synthesize that information. You can then start to uncover where are your knowledge gaps, right? Through quizzing and just through the chat feature. Um, Memorize. Oh, right. So it's the idea of space repetition and how do we use these tools. And so I really am thinking about trying to help students not just build these dashboards, but how do we help them think about how to use these dashboards effectively? And so how can they use the flashcard function to do some space repetition, things like that, and the practice and expand the same idea. All right. This is always the fun of running from a PowerPoint that you haven't really built yourself. Um, so it is trying to say that instead of just drawing from the large language model and the internet, it's using your own files. It's conceptual synthesis, plain text practice. Okay, and I think we'll wrap up with this. So not a bad looking PowerPoint from the single source that I built it from. And that's all I've done with this one so far. So now I want to get you guys involved and jump in and do something. And so,
And Jim, real quick, I'll
yeah,
ask a question that's kind of been being discussed in the chat.
yes,
Are you familiar with the accessibility of the slides as they come out? How accessible are they?
my guess is not very, because they are not editable at all. It's telling me that they are probably images of text and not real text. And so I think right now it is not accessible. I'm just guessing, but that is the sense I get. Let me show you what I mean. If I go in here and look at any one of these, I can revise it, which is interesting. This is new. If I don't like what it says, I can go in and revise and try to correct a slide, but I can't really edit. I can't get to text. And so I think these are images of text rather than accessible text.
Sure, and there's some discussion also on that on downloading it and putting it into Canva and being able to rearrange it and add some features to make it more accessible there. But and also someone asked if you could share that slide deck at some point.
Oh, yes, certainly. I will give you all access to all of these tools today. But let's see, can I just show you while I'm here? I can download it either as a PDF or as a PowerPoint. We'll go ahead and download it and see if I can just attach it to the chat for anybody who wants it right now. Always navigating too many Zoom windows, but yeah, I agree that the accessibility, I'm seeing the chat now and it is kind of a deal breaker in this new world, right? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this right this second because the chat window is also getting in my way. All right, so I'm going to move on and jump and ask all of you just to log in to notebooklm.google.com. So you've probably been here before, but you do need a Google account of some form. Please go ahead and log in. And there's that. Now I get my bearings, I can also attach. Everybody able to get to this screen, I hope. And so you may land here. When you first come in, you might land on your notebooks, but look for the featured notebooks is what I want you to explore first. And pick one. There's a couple I would point out that I guess interest me. Notice there's an introduction to Notebook LM. You might want to choose that one. I also personally like Can a Computer Simulate Brain? But pick one of these and take a few minutes, go in. So these featured notebooks are created by Google or are partners with Google. This is Google Research. They provide a large number of sources. They already do some things in the studio. So I just want you to take a look and play around if you haven't done this much yet. I'm going to go back over to the introduction to Notebook and ask it about accessibility. So again, just using the chat feature in the center panel to ask about the sources. Because this was built by Google, I'm assuming they've done a really good job of bringing in sources that are pretty comprehensive. So we'll see what it says about accessible slides. Multiple ways to view, customize, and distribute them. So yeah, they're really thinking not accessible in the terms that we would like. Compliance, see if that gets us closer. But what I'm hoping you're doing while I'm doing this is dive in and play with one. Whether you're using the chat feature or exploring any of the studio options, I'd like you to give a few a try, and we're going to debrief here, and let's take like 5 minutes. And it does not say that they have any, notice, does not contain any specific information about accessibility compliance. That's a nice feature. What we're learning is the sources don't say anything, so it's not making anything up, but it's also confirmed our worst fears is that the slides probably are not accessible. And the videos are not captioned by default either. So I think there's plenty of room for them to continue to work on this as far as accessibility goes. I think that's a fun idea to give it the ADA guidelines and see. Um, let's see, I'm going to jump back into one of mine and show you how, if I were going to make a slide deck and I wanted to try to give it instructions like follow ADA compliance guidelines, notice the little arrows on a lot of these studio items. If I click the arrow, I get the opportunity to describe the slide deck you want to create. So this is where you could try to present some guidance and see if it will do anything to make it more compliant. All right, so I'm going to give you just a few more minutes, but I really hope you will take a look at things like the infographics that you might find inside these notebooks, watch a video, chat with the interface in the center. I'm curious to see what you find value in, and I bet you the same question will come up with this infographic that this does not feel like it's going to be accessible to me. All right, David, yeah, you've tried that. He says he does, if you make the WCAG 2.0 compliant, I believe it does a better job. It certainly knows how to make things compliant. I'm just not sure how good it is at being able to hack kind of what it's building. A lot of what I see it generating feels kind of like infographics stacked into a deck, right? Um, so they certainly could make them accessible at some point. All right, so like to try to get you guys talking just a little bit, either about what you're finding right now as you explore. If you're pretty new to this and it's the first time you're clicking around and seeing all the stuff you can create, or if you've been using it for a while. Does not use very good area landmarks, so probably won't do a great job with compliance nonetheless. Yep. One of the things I enjoy about Notebook, I've probably been using this for 2 years. And the fact that notebooks I started 2 years ago now get the improved features of everything they're rolling out as it, so I can go back to things where I used to just be able to make a podcast or the simplest little summary, and now I get a full suite of studio tools I can use with that same basic content. And so that's my optimism that they will get better at accessibility. They know that that's going to be a high stakes issue. Um, and so I hope to see improvements before long that will apply to all of the old notebooks I've already created, which is what all I have to do is regenerate, perhaps. No, Tammy, definitely not. Thank you, Leslie. You don't have to sign up for a plan. You can do most everything free. I think it comes to how many sources you get. Oh no, I don't feel attacked at all. The accessibility is a concern for us as well. And I might show you a few tools if I have time on the way out that I think do allow us to do a little bit more. Yep, yep. And in the chat, David's also mentioning other tools. What do we do after the fact? And part of it is kind of how you think about how you might use this. And so as a faculty member, someone who wants to share this resource, you could build one of these yourself, right? And so you could decide, here's the sources I want to bring in, and here's the studio elements I want to create, and then you share a link, right? So I don't have a share link because this isn't one of mine, but pop back over. It's very easy to share, and I can make the notebook available to anyone with a link. And then I copy the link. And now all I have to do is save that. So now you guys can all get to this particular notebook, which had that slide deck in it. So very easy to share these. So you could build it for the students. But in a way, that's limiting them because when I come into a pre-built notebook like this, notice I can't create new studio elements. In my panel, I can create all kinds of stuff because I own this one, but in one that I'm a visitor in, I just get whatever the author decided to create. So if I'm really thinking about this as a UDL tool that's allowing the students to personalize their dashboard, then the other way to do it is give them the files that you would use and let them each build their individual dashboard. And personally, that's how I use Notebook is I build dashboards for anything new, any new course I'm in, any new, I'm doing a lot of Coursera courses, so I'll pull in my notes from those, put them all in the Notebook. And so I build my own. But I have found a couple of these pre-built ones pretty useful at times too. So I think there's advantages to both, but I think to get the true allowing the learner to decide how they want to manipulate the information, um, giving them the documents in a box folder or some other way that you can distribute the files in your LMS and then let them build their portal. Um, and I think, and thoughts on that? Has anybody tried either way? Again, I'd like to open it up and get others talking for a few minutes if we can. Transcripts of meetings into NotebookLM. Yep. Ah, yes. Yep. Very easy to synthesize and grab the what was it that I missed, or what's the point from that meeting? I have recently been building, let's see, um, several for work. So we are looking at using NotebookLM actually for our policy manuals. It ends up being a pretty good onboarding process. So this is just our internal policy document fed into NotebookLM. But now when we get a new employee, it's as simple as playing something like this. Oh, sorry, not the slide deck, but the video.
Hey everyone, and a huge welcome to CITL. We are so glad you're here.
I won't make you listen to our policy document. It's a long one, but it's really nice if I just need to know how do I ask for vacation? And this would be one where us as the center share it out with all employees so they come in and they get their own version. So we don't want them building their own studio elements, right? We want to kind of lock it down a little bit tighter. But they all get their own chats. Notice that the chat I have here is just for me, and it tells me the chat history is now saved across sessions, deleted here, but it's also just private to me. So you don't see my chats within this tool, and I wouldn't see your chats. So we are just going to pilot this soon to see how well this works internally. Other thoughts? Anybody find anything interesting in exploring any of these kind of professionally made or featured notebooks?
I'll share, Jim, that there are a few questions now relating to data and privacy and network security. Just any insight you might have into how Google might be protecting that information.
Yeah, at least if you ask it, and we can ask it right here. How safe is my data? They say that Google or NotebookLM is not training on your data at all. We do have this as part of we have I guess some sort of contract with Google, and so it is at our enterprise level on our campus that you can get access to this, which means it's gone through our risk assessment practices, and we are saying that yes, this is a safe tool to put sensitive data, but not personal data, right? So the definitely still no FERPA kind of protected data, but campus sensitive data we have decided is okay in this notebook that was shared and put it in Google Vid if anyone want to see it. Yeah. The Google Vid is what I was going to show too, Beth, at the end. It's a pretty awesome workflow. So this is telling us your data in NotebookLM is highly protected and is never used to train the underlying AI models unless you explicitly choose to submit feedback. If you do submit feedback, your data may be reviewed by human teams. Because your information is kept private to your specific notebooks and the AI cannot access information across multiple notebooks at the same time, it is a fantastic tool for safety. So, of course, Notebook says it's safe. I'd probably want to do a little bit more digging outside of this tool to see what others say about it. All right. I've got 20 minutes left. Let me see where I'm at. Oh, Google. I'm reading the chat from Michael. The question: workspace accounts that create a notebook, you can't seem to open access to the notebooks with the link, for example, to anyone that looks like individuals. Yeah, I think we ran into this too for a while. If I were using my campus account, it was not, some of the features were limited. Um, and I don't remember if that has changed for me. I think in right now, that's probably why I'm using this non-campus account because it is the one tied to my pro account, which makes sharing easier. But I think that our Google wanted to keep the sharing confined to just within our campus. And so it was not publicly shareable links, but I don't have any great guidance on that, Michael. I'd have to do some more research to see where that's at now. Have to sign, would a visitor to a notebook have to sign in? That's a very good question. I think so. I think that to access it, you probably have to have a Google account. But right, it's very easy to do, and kind of I've gone to using Google as my sign in for most things. So I have a Google account just to be able to sign into a lot of the tools that I use uh, on occasion. All right, I want to keep moving, I guess. I could watch this chat evolve. This particular notebook is another one I will share with you all. So copy the link. Hopefully you can all get to these without any issue. Okay, so for this one now, I want to show you a little bit more of the inner workings for those of you who wanted to really learn how to do these things, right? And so on the left, I brought in 5 or 6 sources. One of the newer things they've done is add this feature. So when you're adding sources, right, you get upload files that will do PowerPoints, images, docs, audio. You can point it at websites, which includes URL links or YouTube links. You can get your stuff from Google Drive or you can get copied text. But if you don't already have resources, I would recommend if you're building these for students, it's bound in your documents, right? It's your PowerPoints, it's your course materials that you're sharing. But if you're building one of these for the first time, one of the ways you can now do it is just jump into a web search. And so I'm going to do a deep research and I'm going to do hyperreality just to see what we get. So that's going to take a while. The deep research is usually kind of slow, and it's going to give me a list of links that it thinks I might want to bring into a notebook, right? And I'm going to have to go and sort through those links. And I think the temptation is a little too easy to say, well, these sound good. I'm going to go ahead and include these. But what I've done is kind of short-circuited my whole system because now I don't know if the knowledge I'm asking people to navigate is anything I really feel is reliable. So I tend to stay away from this. I think this tool is best when I bring my own documents to it, but I could certainly see the advantage of doing a quick dashboard in this manner. Um, Good question, Beth. If I go in and do a search, I have a prompt here, so I probably could say limit them. Let's see. It's not going to let me do it while I'm in the middle of one, but I bet you're right. I could use that prompt to say limit to only academic sources that are verifiable, and so I could try to steer it in the right direction. Because of course, right now it could be looking at blog posts, it could be looking at Reddit. It's going to bring in all kinds of stuff. But I do want to show you that that's one entry point. Um, It's still going away. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the studio panel and make sure you've seen what all of these things do. The audio overview, pretty obvious. That's the podcasting feature. But notice you can go in and control the length. Can also get more of a debate style. And I started doing trying to use these for instructional stuff. So I didn't really want the podcast back and forth dialogue. I wanted more just follow the steps of what of my material and give. So this bite-sized overview might do that. I would do things like hit on every key point and make it more instructional. Something simple like that tends to get it away from the podcast style of a informal conversation. So we'll let that generate real quick. The other thing I wanted to show you is one of the things that this add note button down here, right? The use of that is this thing right here. So I've added this note, mastering the Notebook LM research. So this is where you could put your instructions, right? If you know that you're building one of these for somebody else to use, you can use this notes feature to kind of say, here's what you can do here, here's how to navigate this. And it's just saved as one of the studio items for them to review. When you get to videos now, the brief one and the explainer are what have been around a long time. This new cinematic just arrived in the past week or two, and it's pretty impressive. Let me show you an explainer video first so you can see the contrast. This is the brief one, usually about 2 minutes.
Okay, let's dive into a tool that could literally change how you manage information. You know that feeling, right? We're all constantly bombarded with info, making it hard to keep track. We've all
So notice it's a series of images with voiceover, right? So it's really a PowerPoint with voiceover is what we have here. Still
been
images
there.
one after
Can't
another.
find that one note, or your project research is just a mess.
But they're all still not dynamic at all. And now the cinematic, here's the new and improved version you get.
You sit down to learn a dense technical topic, and within 20 minutes, you are buried. You have a dozen browser tabs open, a 600-page PDF manual, and scattered notes that do not quite connect. We are going to take that wall of noise and organize it into a custom interactive study dashboard, and we will do it in under 6 minutes using Google's NotebookLM. To follow along, you need a free Google account and 3 targeted starting materials. Grab 1 authoritative PDF, 1 YouTube tutorial, and 1 contextual article. If you rely purely on passive reading, complex details slip away. By building an automated system to structure the data, you create a process for actually retaining that information.
So you can see it's getting a little bit more engaging, a little bit more animation. I've seen some that kind of feel like B-roll, although it's not photographic kind of B-roll, more illustrations. So that's the video overview. Reports, the number of ways you can do reports. Create your own is really, it's going to ask you kind of what do you want? What are you looking for here? A briefing doc, a study guide, a blog post. So you can generate a lot of things, a step-by-step learning guide. And I can go in here and really get it to focus on something. So technically denser technology, explain the concept of a step walkthrough of using and we'll see where that goes. So the other things, though, I'd like to call your attention to, you got flashcards, reports, infographic, quizzes, and data tables. Now, data tables, another new entry recently, and I think I've made one of everything in here. So this is all it was able to extract for data tables from my sources. Notebook features. So nothing here that I find terribly useful. If you're dealing with a lot of data, I would believe that this feature could be really handy. But I like both the infographics, I tend to like. They tend to be fairly complicated or complex, lots to unpack here. But again, they usually pretty accurate, good information. And the mind map is the one that's the most interactive. Or maybe the flashcard. So the mind map is interesting because it gives you this kind of interface. So I might go into core capabilities of NotebookLM. And now it's going to take each node that I click on and send that as a prompt over to the chat window. Discuss what these sources say about core capabilities. So in a way, it's just given me another way to prompt the chat window about what this thing does, right? About what NotebookLM does. So I can navigate this, and each thing I do is going to send a new chat over to the chat window and give me more context about that particular item in the mind map. So if you're looking for how things are connected in that kind of visual, this is a nice feature. And the flashcards, let's see how they are. In the second brain routine, what is the purpose of a weekly review? To organize key findings. So I think these are all right. I think the fact that you can't really extract these and use these anywhere is still kind of problematic. But if the goal is to build this dashboard to give the students the power to kind of study on their own, then I think this really becomes a pretty good tool because they could focus in as they build their deck on the things they know that they still want to study. Word count limit per source in the notebook, what, 500,000, I think we saw, 500,000 words per. How does the deep research integration in the search bar assist in project building? It allows users to search the web or drive, which it's still doing over here. Hit explain, and it's going to send it back over to the chat. So yeah, I do think I think there's advantages to either way of presenting and sharing these, whether I build the whole thing and share it out like I've done with this one, or give folks access to materials and allow them to build their own. That's certainly where I find a lot of value. If I go and look at what you can see that the sheer number of these is just huge. This is stuff that's come across my radar in the past few years that I've wanted to hold on to. Vibe coding, a great one. And so I can jump into any of these topics and kind of pick up my learning where I left off, right? Usually I will have created some things. I did a video for this one. I can go watch that video, but at any time I can kind of pop back into one of these topics and continue learning, really driven by my own. It does assume I'm motivated to learn, right? I think that's the other thing is this is a really great tool if you're engaged in your own learning. I'm not sure you could force somebody to interact with this in a way that becomes meaningful for them. You to export the flashcards. Oh, thank you. See, there's so much knowledge here in the chat. I would imagine that asking students to create their own mind map rather than having them go and do this is going to be, yep, if they were going to build their own, true. Although what I found recently, Shannon, I went to Miro to build a mind map and it's got AI also. And so I give it one word and it builds the whole mind map for me. It's like the AI is going to infiltrate all of our tools and we're going to be searching for ways to make sure students are the ones doing the work still. I think that's a whole nother session that hopefully is covered in a lot of places in this conference. I know I'm going to run out of time quickly. So one thing came up, I think it was back in this notebook. You can download their stuff too. Notice this is Google's notebook, but I can get to these sources and I can download them. So I pulled down the deck they made. And I think this is what Beth or someone else was showing earlier, right? Just by uploading this to Drive, here's now my PowerPoint here. And notice it is not editable here. I can't get to any of the text. But I can, this also fairly new, convert to video now. And so I get something like this with almost no effort.
Notebook LM is your living knowledge engine. Start your first notebook today. Treat your notebook as a living document by continuously.
I'll jump back to the beginning. But these are impressive. These where the Notebook LM videos are very hard to script, get them to say what I want them to say. They're going to hit on a lot of key points, but they're going to do it in the style they want. Here, I've pulled something out of Notebook, brought it into this.
Welcome to the
Now it's going to read the slides almost.
video on Notebook LM, your AI research and thinking partner. Go from information overload to instant insight with a grounded AI workspace. Notebook LM provides
So to me, this becomes one more layer of how, I guess I had hinted at this earlier. This talk was really about providing this for students to build their own learning dashboard. But more and more, I am using Notebook to create assets for courses, for our certificate programs and so forth. And these workflows of being able to get a slide deck out of Notebook and drop it into Google Vids so it's animated. And now I can change any of the voiceovers on this too. So I can get to the voiceover for every single deck, every single slide, and change exactly what it's saying. That's a huge feature. Now I actually have a scripted video that has pretty good visuals that I can use. So that's one of the bonus add-on things I did want to hit on as I think about how I'm using these tools these days is often I'll pull it out and take it to another tool, which sounds like also is what we're thinking for making it more accessible. Questions, thoughts? I know I'm almost out of time already. There's so much stuff that to show still, but any questions, thoughts? I guess, you know what my plan was, although I only have 4 minutes, was to ask you now to go make one, right? So if you haven't yet hit create new and bring in your own sources, I really recommend you give it a try. Whether it's just something you want to experiment with or you really want to dive into using this as a course dashboard, um, definitely give it a try and see what you think because it's pretty impressive and it just keeps getting better. Gave me some good advice. Yep. Yep. I use one for a lot of the workshops I do now. Oh, yeah. Lit reviews, I bet. Function is helpful. Yeah. All right. Well, I thank you all for being here. I know that there's lots of options to choose from, so I hope you got something worthwhile. I will share out whatever I can. My guess is we'll have an opportunity to share links outside of this session too. But hopefully you've at least got a few of the things that I presented today now, and I've got 3 minutes if anybody's got any questions.
Many thanks to you, Jim, for coming and sharing with us today. If you could, as a participant, fill out a survey I put in the chat for us. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming to hang out. But we got another couple minutes for any last questions. Something itching your brain.
Thank you for the reminder of the Discord. Yes, I have not been on the Discord yet, but that's the obvious place to put stuff, isn't it? Well, thank you all. I hope everybody has a great rest of the conference. I'm glad to get my session over with, so now I can just listen for the rest of the couple of days. Okay, Anki is the extension, yes, and that is one that came up in this first thing. They were really pushing Anki as a great flashcard creator. All right. Well, again, thank you all. I will see you in other sessions. I appreciate you being here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Leslie.
So